Amba Wash Day. This is just a quick reflection of day 2 of the Indigenomics By Design conference here in Musquem and Squamish territory, also known as Vancouver. It's just been profound. That's been the word that keeps coming up in my paradigm, is profound. And what I mean by profound is that the access of information that is revealed in this conference is unparalleled. It's monumentous. It is an accumulation of experts, Indigenous First Nation experts in their field, who have creatively, intellectually put in the hard work to be able to manifest these positive outcomes with successful impacts for their nation. And as a result, not only are they positive impacts for their nation, but they also can be exemplified for other nations to replicate. So it's profound because, again, if you've watched my previous video I posted on the conference, you know that what is happening in this conference has never been done before. I was talking with my partner about it, and one of the ways that I tried to articulate what I mean by never been done, it's kind of like we are at the pinnacle of dismantling the current systems, which is a revolution. But we are at the pinnacle. It's like us sitting at the top of the mountain. I'm out here in Musquem and Squamish territory, so you know there's mountains. Matter of fact, take a look yourself. Those mountains are real. Those mountains ain't no small sight. They can humble you as a human being, remind you of how small you are in the grand scheme of things. But nonetheless, it's like we're at this mountaintop and we're trying to figure out, how can we get higher? How can we touch the sky? How can we touch the clouds and the stars? How can we get in contact with the bird nation so that we can fly with them and figure out some type of solution to really help our nations evolve, revolutionize? I think there's three massive presentations that I still carry in my vibration currently in this state as I'm recording this video. And the first one was really a mind-blowing presentation on how incredible development can be, encompassing and embodying our traditions, our culture, while interconnected with the landscape of which is being developed, but also preserved for the future generations, for the years to come. One of the quotes or the phrases that was used is they think in 100-year cycles. And so for them to share with this conference their development plans that are integrated and complement the culture, that complement the conservation efforts, that make sure we're not jeopardizing our Mother Earth, profound. And they are one of the largest Indigenous-owned development companies in Canada. Let that resonate. The largest Indigenous-owned development company in this country. And the company is not just out there trying to monetize. They are integrating their cultural practices, revitalizing their traditions of which they've been preserving through generations, and integrating it into the very fabric of their development and sharing it with the public who was present at this conference. Indigenomics at its finest. Caroline Hilton only works with excellence. That's an overstanding, an understanding at this point. I've witnessed it. And it's just incredible to hear and witness all of the different integrations of ecological preservation efforts and conservation efforts to ensure that we are in alignment with our planet Earth and our natural environment, with our ecology, with our ecosystems. And if necessary, we will implement nature into the development. We'll create, a park and plant the trees and develop the nature so that that park exists within that development. That's what's happening. So really difficult to try and represent what they presented at such a high scale. I'm trying to give you a recap of one of the presentations that really resonated with me. Incredible work and highly culturally relevant, culturally intentional about what they're doing. Like on that mountain peak, at that pinnacle, they're in the sky, they doing it, they flying. It's incredible. Another one that really stood out was, first of all, shout out to the Musquem Economic Development Corporation. That's who I'm making reference to. And this other one is doing incredible things when it comes to the technological advancement of which engineer positive social impact for the communities, for the nation. So, for example, shout out to One Feather. Shout out to Lawrence and their team and their efforts of what they're doing and how they're leveraging technology to make positive social impacts within the community is as follows. This is a little bit, hard to really rationalize because we're making reference to status cards here in this example, but I'm trying to give you some context of impact. So when it comes to the status card application process, it can become very dire. It can become extensive, inconvenient. It can be challenging. Depending on where you are, where you live, if you're remote or live in a community that doesn't have easy access to these services and resources because of geographical location, these are barriers. And so they've developed their app of which they can literally process status card renewals through their app. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to write anything by hand. You just fill out the documentation that's necessary and you do the application through their app, and your renewal is done for you right then and there. Boom. Processed at the speed of technology. So the statistics that they shared associated to this service that they're offering is there's approximately 40 to 50,000 renewal status card applications processed annually. Approximately, if I'm remembering the information correctly. The minute they made available, which means they made it very accessible to renew your status card, they processed 24,000 applications. That's already more than half of the applications that get processed, of which those 24,000 impacted their lives because they didn't have to go and deal with all the barriers in order to accomplish that. So that's just a little bit of context of which the One Feather app has already done and doing. Now, to close this off, they also revealed that they're working at developing other type of services through their app that can literally save millions of dollars, in the sense that, when we think about taxes, every time you pay taxes, capital gains tax, if you're paying goods and service tax, depending on where you are and if you are a First Nation, the tax situation is a whole other video for a whole other time. Remember that Canada is situated on Indigenous territory, period. This is our home. These are our lands. So when we get taxed, that's a whole other type of colonial construct for another time, another place. But nonetheless, there are exemptions to taxes that First Nations are, the word is escaping my mind, but they have the right to a certain tax exemption. And so the statistics that they shared is that there was over $200 million of taxes that were paid, which means the taxes that every human being processes in this country goes back to the government. So that $200 million of taxes that were processed were transactions of which could have been tax exempt for First Nations. The example they provided of impact is, imagine the money that was spent that went to taxes towards the government to make their nation wealthier, this country, Canada, wealthier, could have gone back to our communities, could have stayed within our communities, could have stayed within the hands of a single mother who has children. Those dollars could have went to paying utility bills or paying grocery bills or taking care of their family responsibilities. So that money could have stayed within the community. So with that problem, the One Feather app is working on a solution currently so that status card can be a different type of experience. They're literally redesigning and pioneering and re-engineering how this status card can serve us in a better way, economically, socially, mind, body, spirit, emotions, the impact, the life-changing experiences people will have in the way that they will use and interact with the status card. Long-winded, I know. The last one is really a reminder of how important traditions are when it comes to how we interact with our planet. A beautiful story by Eli Enns. Shout out to Eli. Incredible stories, incredible information. He shared with us, when he was a young man going out hunting, fishing for the first time with his uncle. His uncle took him out into the ocean. Beautiful story about that. And his uncle instructed him to go and harvest some of the seagull eggs that were at the side of this rock cliff, if you will. And he climbs up this rock cliff, and he didn't feel good in his heart, because in his heart he knew that he's walking into the home of these seagulls, where some of the most intimate spaces are there so that they can have and lay their eggs, and that whole reproduction process. You follow me? And he felt so bad about going into their space and invading their space, and going to harvest these eggs. He really didn't feel as though it was good in his heart, because he's connected to the land. He's connected to the spirit of nature. And so with that part of the story, he articulated that there was no eggs actually available for him to harvest, because they were all either broken, or other animals already got to these eggs as a food resource. And so there was nothing actually readily available for him to harvest. And so he felt good about that. And so he traveled back down this rock cliff. And as he came back around the rock cliff where his uncle was, he witnessed his uncle, from the fish that they harvested, harvesting that fish and giving parts of that fish to the seagulls in return for the eggs that they were harvesting. So it's a reciprocated relationship, intentional, to give back to the land, to give back to our nature, to give back to our bird nation, our animal life, because we are taking something as a result. And when he witnessed this feast that his uncle was providing the seagulls, it made him feel better about what he was instructed to do. And so when he came back down and told his uncle there was no eggs available in that first cliff, his uncle instructed him to go to the next tier. He had to go even higher up. And because of that, Eli mentioned that if he would have been instructed to climb higher up at the time where he knew in his heart he wasn't feeling good, it could have been dangerous. But because he came back down and saw his uncle offering a feast for these seagulls, it filled his heart with that good medicine that gave him the strength to climb over to that next peak, of which he was able to harvest those seagull eggs and other eggs and bring them back down and be able to provide for his family. Incredible stories. So for me to hear about the Musquem Development Corporation, to hear about, Eli's incredible story, to hear about the One Feather app, all of this is happening at this Indigenomics conference, and this is day 2. So the elevation and innovation and how we are learning to use and leverage technology to be able to make things more accessible so that we can start moving in a pace at the speed of technology to be able to make this planet better, to be able to make our communities better, our nations better, and at the same time preserve and conserve our planet. We can learn a whole lot from our indigenous people. Indigenous people, our First Nations, are leading the way, especially out here on the West Coast. The Musquem nations, the Squamish nations, they're doing big things. And I hear my auntie chief in my mind that, of course, things are advancing quickly out here. The geographical location allows for, business to thrive, or for the expertise, the services. The geographical location has a lot of that embedded in its area, where out in the prairies where I'm from traditionally, where we're from, making reference to my auntie chief being in my mind, the experience of which we have access to certain professionals in particular fields is a whole different type of outcome. Different type of infrastructure is necessary, different type of business development is necessary, different methods of economic development is just different. And so to witness what's happening here and to be able to take that information and bring it back to my community is exciting for me. In closing, being able to spend so much time with Caroline Hilton and her team, to be able to spend so much time in that safe environment of which her and the team created and engineered to be able to offer this experience for the nation, for the participants, for the delegates, is something I'm going to carry forever. It's an experience that I'm never going to forget. And this is why I'm taking the time to document it. This is why I wanted to take the time to make this video. Even though they're long-winded, that's okay. Because for those who are tapping into the information, for those who are resonating with what I'm sharing with you, I relate to you. Trust me, I get it. I feel you. The vibrations are all the way up there. I get it. I get you. So I'm doing these long-winded documentation videos for the person who's tapping in, for the people who really get what I'm putting down and, might be interested in what I'm sharing with you. But in closing, I'm just trying to say that it's been so incredible to be in the same space as Caroline Hilton, to witness, her heart, her mind and spirit, and how she moves and presents herself in the room, and how she carries herself and how she interacts with people. It's amazing. She's an incredible human being. Incredible human being. And I'm just so honored to be part of this experience. Her team, Denise, Jen, Tinthy, Linda, everybody involved in making this event, the whole team is incredible. It's amazing. Everything went smooth because we had each other's back, and because Caroline Hilton set the standard of excellence, and so that's the outcome. Amazing. So at this point, I'm going to, let a lot of this information simmer in my mindset totally shift my paradigm. I feel great. I feel positive. I feel healthy. Even though I spent 2 days delivering as an MC, I got to perform some music. Wow, what an experience. Extremely humbled, full of gratitude, an unforgettable experience. And so I just wanted to share that with y'all. Thank you for listening. Ambawashte.